The idea we aligned on was, let's make a horror film that brings to life the anxieties, proofs, and fears of a Gen Z making moves in their career, making moves in their early stages of life, and how do you make that entertaining?
In an ever-changing world that's all about staying connected, building connections, and seeing where the next collaboration takes a marketing campaign. From an initial brief to the follow-through, what paths are going to make a campaign success more than a possibility? Hi, I'm Brett Marchand, CEO of Plus Company. This is Partners in Possibility. Today's podcast in Partners in Possibility, we're going to talk to Gah-Yee Won from Intuit and Chief Creative Officer Josh Budd about an amazing campaign they did called Undone. In our first section, we're going to talk about the challenges and motivation to reach out to Gen Z and why they're so important to TurboTax and their future. In our second section, we're going to talk about pushing the creative bounds and how they used a short film director, a horror film director, instead of a traditional advertising and production team to make this amazing content. Coming up, we're going to talk about how important timing is, especially when you're talking about tax season, but also how important trust is between the marketer and the advertising and agency team to make an amazing campaign like this. Welcome to the latest episode of Partners in Possibility, the podcast that reviews great campaigns and other stories in the marketing world. Today, I'd like to welcome back Josh Budd, Creative Director of Citizen, and Gah-Yee Won, who's the Head of Marketing at Intuit. Listen, I'm really excited about this podcast because I think the campaign, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is really amazing. But before we get into the campaign and let out all the great gifts about how it came about and what you did, what I'd like to do is just start with the challenge. What were you trying to do here, Gah-Yee? What's the problem you were trying to solve? Who are you targeting? Let's start there, and then we'll talk about the actual idea.
Yeah, for sure. So the challenge was to speak to a pretty elusive audience, which is our Gen Z cohort. And the challenge was do something, that was engaging, but also that would catch them off guard, catch them by surprise, and really speak to the tax anxiety that a lot of our younger consumers face. And so that was a challenge that went out to our agency partners to try and solve this season.
Yeah, Gen Z is, as you say, they're elusive. A lot of marketers are trying to figure out how to market to them and how to engage them, especially since there's such a different generation in many ways with social media and work-life balance and all kinds of other things. But why Gen Z for TurboTax?
So our market is taxes, and so where does that grow? Where do people start thinking about their taxes? First job, coming out from under their parents' tax situation. So Gen Z is a huge growth area for us, along with newcomers. Those are the two places where the Canadian population grows. And so when we're thinking about where does our business need to go, Gen Z is really a huge proportion of that. Getting them in early, helping them understand their taxes, helping alleviate that fear that they face and that anxiety that they have, which is real. Helping them overcome that is really important, and really how we feel like we'll reach that audience.
And I presume that like other categories, I know beer is one of these that Gen Z, when you first do your taxes, I assume it's like drinking your first beer. You kind of adopt a brand and then tend to stick with it.
And a lot of people stick with what their parents did. And so, there's some calcified notions about taxes and about tax prep. There's also a lot of like, I don't want to think about it. And so how do we break through that? How do we break through that, like out of mind, out of sight, to do something that will really speak to those people who are new to it, who probably actually haven't had that education, right? We could talk about financial literacy till the cows come home, but that's really one of those things where people don't get that education in school. And so, you kind of just like do whatever your parents did or whatever comes easiest. And so we need to break through there and speak to them and show them how we're different.
Yeah, and I have two Gen Z children, both of whom in just the last couple of years have started new jobs and had to do tax for the first time instead of us doing it for them.
Yeah.
And this anxiety is a real issue. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, they don't learn how to do that in school, right? Like I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school, there was no financial literacy. Everything you learned was kind of out in the wild. And so it's really important for us to make sure that, we address the anxiety and then we also address how we can help you. We can address, that financial understanding and education that maybe you didn't quite get when you were in school.
Speaking of scary, you picked a horror genre for this campaign. Tell me a little bit about why and how you came to that decision.
Well, obviously Gen Z love horror films. That they are big consumers of that. And so, we were like, what can we do that's, completely different that you wouldn't expect from something that, is a tax software, which is kind of boring. We wanted to do the opposite of boring. And that's a horror film. And so why not do something a little bit shocking, do something that is completely unexpected? And frankly, made some of our executives a little uncomfortable, right? And I think that that's a good thing, getting people out of their comfort zone. And so this accomplished a lot of that.
Did the horror idea come from you and your team, or was it a broader brief to Citizen and Josh's team?
It was not from our team. I'm going to throw it to Josh because it was all the incredible brainchild of our partners at Citizen.
I will say we did not expect you to pick it. I think we presented 5 or 6 ideas, and one of them was like, well, we like it. Not sure if they will. And I think it was maybe in the first meeting or like very early the next day where like the team was quite decisive. They were like, there's something here. Think it's interesting. Let's explore it. And we're like, oh, okay. All right, let's go with it. And it's one thing to propose to your client that you make a horror film. It's another thing altogether to start to digest that and understand this isn't a 15-second spot. It's not a 30-second spot. This is a long form narrative that has to compete with all of the other long form narrative. It's entertainment. And once you start to play in that world, you have a different kind of standards and criteria that you have to execute. So once you said yes, we were excited, but then we were kind of like, all right, how are we going to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a brave client to do a campaign like this. So congratulations, Gah-Yee, on that.
We are decisive and determined, if not anything. So I also want, our agencies to know, bring us an incredible idea and we'll get behind it. And from there, it just felt like it was a snowball happening, right? Like great idea. And then, we saw the writing, we saw the production. I mean, it was incredible. And I'm so proud of the work. And I knew I would be the second I saw the idea. And I think, that's the thing, right? Like sometimes you can't quantify that gut feeling, but you know it's going to happen.
Okay, so Josh, you present this idea along with the other 5. Gah-Yee and team says, "Let's go." Now what?
It's a great question.
Did you actually write the full short film? Because this is for our audience, this was a 9-minute short horror film, which is pretty incredible. Everyone should watch it. But I presume you didn't show up with a 9-minute scripted film, did you?
We did. The idea we aligned on was let's make a horror film that brings to life the anxieties, truths, and fears of a Gen Z making moves in their career, making moves in their early stages of life, and how do you make that entertaining? So, um, the first thing in our mind was it has to be entertaining. If it smells like branded content too early, or if it smells like the world is rosy and beautiful and all you have to do is click here, then it's not going to land. And so, we aligned really early on with our partners on Gah-Yee's team is like, first and foremost, this has to be as scary, as interesting, as compelling as any short horror film. And once the client was nodding, once we were holding hands on that, the rest of the process, I mean, it was arduous, but we had our North Star. There was never any lack of alignment on what we were trying to do. And I mean, I don't mean just to say this because you're here, Gah-Yee, but like your team was really, really phenomenal through the entire process. Very trusting, but also challenging. And I think the output is a true testament to the to partnership, to be honest, because there were lots of times where we could have slid a logo in or a brochure on a desk, and over it was like, nope, that's not scary. Nope, that's not going to work. And we found our time to bring the brand in. I think we did a good job on that.
Yeah, I think if I can add to that, we've had experience. We have done branded content before that is so light touch. And actually, we see such incredible results from that. The unaided brand recall of like, maybe we showed the logo once, maybe twice, maybe we said TurboTax once. But if you make amazing, beautiful, compelling, engaging content, people will remember. And that is such an important thing to remember when we're going about making this type of content.
Speaking of making great content, you got a pretty amazing director for this, right, Josh? Philip Terlecki, who's done a bunch of short horror films. I think he's even shown at Cannes. So, how did you accomplish that?
Well, again, goes back to our aligned objective. It has to be scary. So rather than looking for a commercial director and being like, hey, can you make a scary film? We did the opposite. We found a horror director and said, hey, can you make this piece of light touch branded content? And again, some of the tropes of horror we all know in terms of like, jump scares and scary moments and things like that. But the crafting of those moments is a very specific skill. And so having someone who lives in that world, breathes that world, like we know the brand side, we know the story side, he knows the horror side. It was an important inclusion. He also came with a lot of good recommendations in terms of how to stretch the value of our investment in special effects, which is always something you're looking for. So he brought a lot of value to the post production process as well. So it felt like a really good fit. And honestly, he was really stoked to do it, which is also something you love to hear from a director when they're like chomping at the bit to get behind the camera. And the first chat with him, he was all in. He was super excited, and that goes such a long way in terms of looking for partners. Our friends at TurboTax, they were excited. We were super excited. So the more super excited people you have, just obviously the better the project's going to be. And he brought a lot of value in thinking about how the special effects are going to actually come to life, what kind of metaphors we had in mind would work and look great, what might not, some alternatives. I will say the creative team the script is pretty close to what we ended up shooting, give or take. But there were definitely some moments where Philip would step in and be like, but if we did this, this would look rad. And I know how we do it. I know, the post people who are the right people who can do it within our budget. So he brought a lot of value just in terms of understanding how to make the genre. And like I said, was a really good partner through the whole process.
I love the little nod to taxes due on the calendar in the background. It wasn't, in your face, but if you noticed it, it gave you just a hint of what was going on, which I thought was really brilliant. Gah-Yee, maybe talk a little bit about casting, because I know that, it was a first-time actress, right, that played the lead role.
Yeah, I mean, it was her first, kind of feature film, if you will, and she was amazing. I mean, she really hit those emotions and the anxiety. And I mean, she is Gen Z, like she was who she is, and I think that probably made it much easier for her to step into the role, into our lead role. She was amazing. And our monster also, was really his first big role, and he was incredible too. I mean, not only the hair and the makeup, but the actual portrayal. Like he really was creepy. I was scared. He had those finger motions down. So I think that the casting was incredible, and Josh and his team, they really found the right people to do this.
I know with the lead, I remember getting a text. I wasn't at the casting. The team was there. They sent me a text saying, "We have our lead. We don't have a backup. We don't need a backup. She's perfect. Think we can sell her?" Like, yeah, she's that perfect. I don't think we need to present three options for the sake of having three options. And again, the minute anyone saw her, she's so evocative with her face, and like, horror is so much about that close up, that reaction. And she's natural, excellent actress.
You also did a great job when at the end when you come back with the brand, where she's in the bright light and all is good. I thought she did a great job on both ends because sometimes people can do horror and can't do sunny
Yeah.
disposition, but she was great at both. I thought.
She's got a bright future, that one.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how you distribute it. So, 9-minute film, which you obviously can't use everywhere, even though a lot of people have watched it, and we'll talk about that in the results. But talk maybe a little bit about the distribution strategy on this and how you got it out there for people to either link to watch it and or to get a teaser on it.
Yeah, I mean, we love when our agencies work together, and this is one of those great times where it was like, Citizen came up with this incredible idea for this film, and then it was a plus, it was an and. So we also ended up having the trailer across the internet on our social channels through paid. Obviously, the movie itself lived on YouTube or lives on YouTube because you can watch the full 9-minute movie. But I think one of the greatest ideas was putting it in movie theaters and getting the trailer into as close as possible to the trailers of big budget Hollywood films. And we had such amazing response. Our friends at Cineplex actually bonused us a whole bunch of impressions because they were like, "This is amazing. Let's get this across the country." So you could actually see the trailer next to big, huge other movies, Hollywood blockbusters across every single English market in Canada. So really, took this project and blew it out of the water in ways that, I think we were like, this is like a big budget movie. This is how advertise it. And we saw so much engagement with it from it.
It's a great sign that it's good film and it's engaging when you put it in theaters and people like it, because let's be honest, people go to watch the movies, not to watch ads at the beginning. So you must have been really proud of that.
Yeah, super proud of that.
So let's talk a little bit about what you learned from doing this. Maybe touch on a little bit of the results. First of all, what were you trying to? You talked about what you were trying to accomplish, which was obviously get Gen Zs to use TurboTax. Maybe, Gah-Yee, you can touch a little bit on what kind of results you saw from this.
Yeah, there was twofold, right? So this came from our PR comms team. So one of our big plays here was to get some press, to get people excited. And we got picked up by quite a few, industry magazines, websites. We were awarded Best Creative of the Week from The Drum, which was so exciting. We really did get a lot of pickup here. So, the industry excitement and people hearing about it was one of them. The other piece was helping us reach our Gen Z audience. And so getting some pickup in mainstream media too, and having people and having, influencers talk about it. We really had a lot of buzz around this little film that we did, which was really incredible. And probably one of the biggest PR comms play that we've had in Canada in quite some years. So, to me, that was very successful in reaching helping us reach our Gen Z audience.
And you probably have a pretty limited time, right? Tax season is not long. I presume that you got to catch them at the right time, right? When did you start the campaign?
We started the campaign in April, in really the biggest time for us. So tax season is basically from mid-February, we'll say, until the end of April. And so we have a very narrow window, really only a couple of weeks to really make our year. And so, this film coming out in April was the perfect time. It's when people are thinking about their taxes, starting to gear up, figure out what they're going to use. And so the timing was really important to make sure that we were at the height of that, buzz around taxes.
We were also at the height of the anxiety, which I think is why the content played so well. Not only was it top of mind, but like that's where the anxiety, the fear, the what should I do reaches a bit of a fever pitch, which is when the content and the brand can come in both to say, hey, we get you, but also we can help you.
I mean, it's such a great insight, by the way. I know you talked about it being Gen Z insight, Gah-Yee, but I still feel anxiety. And I've done a lot of taxes, as you can tell by my beard.
No, it is. And it's something that's a bit ubiquitous, right, across all of our audiences. Even if you've done your taxes, a handful of times, you've got new situations. Maybe you bought a house, maybe you had a baby, and these are all things that impact your tax situation. And so you always have questions. And so if we can show you that we understand you, one, and two, that we can actually alleviate those fears, and that's really all the branding we had in there was at the very end is like that that comfort feeling that we can help you. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to talk to is just help customers understand that whether you're Gen Z or a boomer or Gen X or a millennial, we have the solutions that can help you.
Josh, I'm sure you've done some long form in your past, but any key learnings for you from this project?
Well, with long form, I mean, people like the more you have on like in the can, the more content there is for people to nitpick at, right? So the longer the piece of content, obviously people will wonder, does it need to be that long? They start to really scrutinize it. But in this case, like I honestly think it was exactly as long as it needed to be. It didn't feel bloated. It didn't feel rushed. And I think, when you're doing long form, you just gotta kind of throw the rules out of it. Like best practices suggest it's this or that. It's like whatever the story needs to be told. And that's to your point, Brett, earlier, where a director is so key. Like you write the film with the script, you write the film again in production, and then you write the film one more time in post. And it continues to get tighter and stronger. We shed some of the stuff that's not working, or in some cases add some things in production that are actually quite magical because you discover them on set. So I think, when you have the luxury of longer form, you just have to lean into it and not worry so much about a specific length you might have in mind.
Yeah, good point. Was there a director's cut that was like 27 minutes?
I don't think so in this case, because you know what? The director was the editor as well. Historically he cuts his own work as well. So in this case, the director's cut, I believe, pretty much mirrors the agency's cut again, or the in-market cut, which one more time is a testament to Gah-Yee and the TurboTax team.
So, Gah-Yee, what about for you? Any key learnings that you take from a project like this that will help in future campaigns, either on TurboTax or anything else that you guys do?
One of the things that we really try to do is trust the process, trust the people. And so, for me, that's a big learning that we keep applying, is trust our teams, and really give them that time and space to breathe. As you were saying earlier, Josh, is, let the project breathe. We don't need to, be there for everything, but that's when you get some magic. And so, for us, this was a great success. There were really some incredible feedback that we got internally as well as externally. And so, if anything, just do more of this.
Yeah. And that kind of trust, in my experience, both trust in the agency that comes from you and trust internally in you as the marketing department, it's really important.
Yeah, 100%. And we have that trust with all of our agencies, which is really important. Trust the partners that you work with, know that they know what they're doing, and their guidance. They've got the experience, so make sure that you let them do the thing that they're best at. Get out of the way.
Yeah, that's good advice. So, what's next? Is there an Undone 2 coming in 2025, or have you guys thought about where this goes next?
That's a good question. I loved the film. I think, something else along these lines would be great. Undone 2 would be amazing too. Everybody loves a good sequel or maybe even a prequel. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm excited to see what the team comes up with. I think I don't want to limit you guys. I feel like we got the best idea after just saying, hey, come back to us with something incredible. So I'm actually going to say I don't know, and I'm going to say, Josh, the ball's in your court.
Well, one of the great things about horror is that you can, Scream. What is there? Scream 27. So
Yeah.
you could do this for a lot of years.
We could. What I love about this year's partnership again is it wasn't born from like let's make a horror film. It was born from let's do something that is unique, engaging, disruptive, and will work. So if that's the brief again next year, and we can build upon the success of this year, then I think we take it back to blank page. And could there be an Undone 2? Probably. Could there be a rom-com that achieves the same goal? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could be something totally different. And I think that's the great thing about trust, right? Is that you don't need to fall back on, well, it worked, so we must do it again to make sure it works. There's a foundation there that gives us a lot more runway, which is great.
Well, listen, this podcast is called Partners in Possibilities, and this is a great example of you guys partnering to do something that I'm not sure anyone would have thought was possible. So congratulations. I think the work is really amazing, and I'm super grateful that you guys spent this time with me and proud of what you produced. So go team.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That was Gah-Yee Won and Josh Budd giving their experience and insight into why marketing to Gen Z is so important to TurboTax and how they engage that audience using an amazing short horror film. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Partners in Possibility.